quite a lot of people are concerned in graffiti from sort of one end to the other of the scale, or street art, whichever way you look at it. And I'm minded of the fact that one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist. It appears to me that one man's artist is another man's vandal. But, you know, that's going to be an issue that various people have been batting about in their mind today. From a point of view, for a living, I used to be a policeman, and nowadays I do security design consultancy for various, mainly New World projects. There are a number of people involved in any new project, and they're going to start off with the designer, of course, but then there are a number of other actors, whoever's going to own it, whoever's going to be the authority that governs it, kind of any enforcers who might be involved, perpetrators, possibly artists, certainly the public. We've got quite a strong message from people about the public this morning. So all of these people are going to have their own perceptions of what sort of problems might affect a development. And as time's going on, drawings which were quite arcane and need quite specialist skills to decipher are now becoming much easier for everybody to read and everybody to interpret. We're getting to a point where 3D modelling is going to get cheaper and cheaper and going to become more and more accessible for people. So there may be an opportunity here to actually put a threat risk assessment process, maybe not just for graffiti, maybe not just for vandalism, but for whole crime, across the whole range of actors and stakeholders. To go into impact and measures of impact, normally when we assess risk in a formal way, we look at a matrix. So we look at not just impact, but other factors as well, such as how vulnerable the target actually is. So is it easy to commit the crime, to do whatever it might be, in this case graffiti? What is the attractiveness of the target? So you might have a blank wall, really, really vulnerable, but it's somewhere in the middle of Scotland, it faces away from the road, it's nowhere near where anybody lives, so it's not going to be attractive at all to somebody who wants to put a piece of graffiti on it, particularly if it's a tag, because nobody's ever going to read it. What is the impact going to be? Is it going to have a big public impact? Is it going to have a small impact? And all of these are going to apply to each of the individuals. So if, for instance, you've got an owner, the consequence of an act are going to have a particular impact on that owner, and they are going to have their own set of scores for vulnerability, attractiveness and impact, and therefore multiplied up of consequence on them. There'll be a different one for an enforcer, because the enforcer's resource is being committed to this particular need. Another different one for a perpetrator, because the perpetrator has a motivation. They've got to get something out of it, otherwise they wouldn't do it. It would be possible to matrix the different scores, understand the different motivations, and actually apply mitigation selectively to each stakeholder. So, in other words, you might particularly target the perpetrator's needs, you might particularly target the need of the enforcer, you might particularly target the perception of the public. You might just matrix the lot and get a much bigger picture, rather than somebody in isolation like me standing outside performing a threat risk assessment of what the overall threat risk might be. And finally, you get an opportunity to test it against reality if you do this as a series of finite projects. So don't just scattergun it, actually pick up projects that are about to come about and run them as individual test studies. That's it really, it's just some ideas I've pulled out this morning that you might be able to do some actual investigative work into using risk assessment models.